Yo, it's your boy Dctree, and this is Dctree-Nation, the channel on YouTube that covers hoops and heroes. And today we talking hoops. We talking my San Antonio Spurs, y'all. And I gotta tell you, man, the mood in Spurs Nation has been a little funky, a little grumpy, a little all over the place. But I'm here to tell you, do not let the preseason discourage you, okay? And don't get me wrong, I'm not one of these, blinded optimists that feel like the Spurs are going to win the championship all of a sudden. But at the same time, I feel like fans need to pump their brakes a little bit and don't get discouraged by a 0-3 start, okay? The fact that they only had 3 games is a huge situation in itself, and I'm going to talk about it. But before I jump too deep into it, if you like my content, please sub to the channel. Okay, if we're being completely honest, the Spurs don't look very good in the preseason. But let's look at this for a second. Let's be objective. Is this really the preseason, guys? Is this really what the Spurs needed? Is this really enough room and enough games for them to get into shape and be ready to play as themselves? I'm not sure, guys. Think about it. Because of this whole bubble situation, because of the pandemic, it has thrown the NBA in flux, okay? Training camp was like 2 to 3 weeks when it's usually closer to a month. The preseason usually lasts, 7, 8, 9 games? Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but around 8 or 9 games, each season, it's been cut down to 3. So, the Spurs don't really have enough time to really stretch their legs and get into shape and, do the things that they usually are able to do, especially when you add in injuries to the equation. You got injuries to certain players. I'm going to get into that later. But the number one reason is the preseason really isn't a preseason. Sure, the Spurs are 0-3. But at the same time, it's not like they had enough time. They had 1 game, and then they went against a Thunder team that was unusually hot from the field, and then they played the Rockets back-to-back in Houston, okay? That's not necessarily a fair look at the team, in my opinion. So that's the first reason why we should probably relax a little bit. Well, maybe not relax, but cut these guys some slack, because it's not necessarily a normal situation for them to get into game basketball shape. Like, don't get me wrong, the guys look like they've been working out in the offseason. They don't look fat like James Harden. But they look like they're in shape, but they just not in basketball shape, running up and down the floor a little bit, a lot of turnovers, in the last couple of games, those type of things. That would, cool off or change with time, guys, with time. Another reason why Spurs fans should calm down just a bit and be cautiously optimistic about the team is the fact that the Spurs are missing potentially 2 starters here. Derek White, he has been a starter for as long as I can remember, at least for the last year, off and on, of course, but he's pretty much been a starter. He's been the starting shooting guard for the Spurs for quite some time, and he did very well in the bubble, okay? So we are without him. So when we get him back, he's going to really change the dynamic of the team. And then you have Keldon Johnson, the youngster that's, he exploded in the bubble defensively and offensively. These are 2 players that can really change the climate of the Spurs, especially on the defensive end, matched up with Murray and matched up with Vassell. Now, one thing I did notice in that last Houston game was that Murray and Vassell played together very well, especially on the defensive end. Murray, despite all the complaining that Spurs fans do about him, which I feel like is unwarranted, he is very sound defensively, and this team needs defense badly, absolutely badly. They really need rim defense, but perimeter defense is right on the list. So if you're looking at the Spurs, if you run with Murray, White, Vassell in the same lineup, maybe not as starters, but at some point in the game, man, you're looking at a very potent lineup. And then if you go small and maybe put Keldon at the 4, man, that'd be awesome. That'd be absolutely awesome. So, we haven't seen the Spurs at full power yet. Now, granted, full power could still mean missing the playoffs. Full power could still mean getting bounced out the first round. But you can't deny that the Spurs haven't shown their full potential yet. And that's what I'm talking about here in this video. Okay, and the final reason why the Spurs Nation should not be discouraged and should be cautiously optimistic about the Spurs is the fact that DeRozan barely played in the preseason. I mean, he played 20 to 25 minutes, 26 minutes there, 27 minutes there, but he hasn't played his full 33, 34 minutes that he usually plays in the regular season. And despite, the hype, despite what some Spurs fans say, DeMar DeRozan is still the best player on the floor for the San Antonio Spurs. No, he's not Kawhi. No, he's not a defensive powerhouse. No, he's not going to make his people around him better all the time. But he still is going to get you that 20 plus points per game. He's still going to shoot around 50% from the field. He's still going to score when the Spurs need a bucket. And that's what star players do. And he's our star. Whether you like it or not, he's our star. And until he plays 35 minutes, I'm not completely worried about this team. Because I feel like as a fan base, we just put so much focus on younger players, on Murray and Derek White and, Keldon Johnson. And I get it because we're excited about these guys growing and getting better and being players we need to be Kawhi-like almost. They come out of nowhere. But at the end of the day, if the folks making $25 million a season or whatever DeMar is making or whatever LaMarcus is making, aren't playing at all-star levels, aren't scoring 20 points per game, aren't hitting clutch shots at the end of games, then what our young players do, like Vassell and Trey Jones, it won't matter, man. We need DeMar to play like an all-star for us to have a shot at the end of the day. Okay, and this 0-3 record doesn't really reflect that because, think about it. DeMar had limited minutes in the first game, obviously. He didn't even play the whole second half of the first game against Houston, okay? And then he played maybe like 24, 25, maybe 27 minutes. Second game in Houston, that's not his usual, minute restriction. That's not his usual gameplay. That's not his usual aggression. This preseason was more about Pop seeing what he had on his team than trying to win games, maliciously. Because even in the first game against the Thunder, they cut it down to 4. I remember, I think it was 8-9 minutes to go in the game. Pop pulled all the starters and pulled every player that was worth the dang and was just playing, the end of the bench. So don't let the 0-3 start discourage you. Now, I'm not sitting here saying, hey, we're going to win the championship. I'm not saying, hey, we're going to make it to the second and third round. I'm not saying that, but I don't think we're going to be in the lottery. Some people saying, hey, we're going to get the 5th pick this year and all these things like that. And that may very well happen, but we're not there yet, guys. We're nowhere near that yet. Let's at least play, 15, 20, 25 games, and then we can make a decision on that, on where this team is going, okay? All right, guys, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. As usual, meet me in the comments with your remarks. I appreciate the support. Go Spurs, go. Despite the 0-3 record, I'm still rolling with y'all boys. All right, guys, let me know how you feel in the comments. Peace.